I should have done better at like marking things. Like, dear God, Justin, be better, be better.
No, we're good. We're good. This is great. So how did you guys come about acquiring Invisible PPC? How did they get started before you got to a point where you're like, this is something we want to acquire?
Yeah, so Invisible PPC, we went through like an agency broker one.
Okay.
So like if you're looking to buy businesses, like there's some great people out there. I like, and they do this for a living, and they'll find like you'll screw up. Like I mean, even with a broker, you might screw up, but you'll screw up less. But brokers have seen kind of like the problems, like when you're like of how much you can either be overspending, or if you're selling, how much you could be undervaluing at those things. So there's a lot of value in working with those types of folks. So we went through a trusted broker for this one, and when Invisible PPC popped up, I was like, no, no way. I mean, this brand, it's a legacy brand in the space, and there's problems that can come with legacy brands. Like, are they just old now or something like that? But Invisible PPC was one of the first like named non massive like Vendasta type company that you could name that was like, oh, they do white label services, they do white label PPC, and that's very partly due to the old ownership. Like they did a really good job building a brand around Invisible PPC, and like when it came up, I was like, that's a really strong brand name. And then when you start looking at the revenue, the figures, like the client base, the focus, like where things were at, you're like, it's also a very good business. So it was one of those scenarios where like we've been like, my business partner has been in he's been in the marketing agency space for 15 years, traditionally more, and he transitioned over into marketing from like being an engineer, like a hardware engineer, like, and building phones and doing all this type of stuff. And I was like, then he started his marketing career, and I came from doing marketing in-house at Digital Marketer, so doing kind of like core education, like marketing courses, and working with agencies. So I was very tight with a lot of the agency side of things, and was like, oh man, this is a great nab. So we both knew the paid side of things weren't really. We were new to owning a white label company, or like even like utilizing white label companies. We didn't really use them, but then it makes a whole lot of sense. And so it all kind of came together. And so, yeah, it was, great brand, great company there. And then really and I think it was the specificity of the company that really spoke to me, because we always talk about niche down. Everybody talks about those things. People very rarely do it. And when you see that working, it's just a no-brainer.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So obviously we're going to talk about how you got to 173 million in total ad spend managed. But what was it at when you guys acquired it? And so what did that journey look like, kind of taking over from that stage, getting your feet wet and moving the needle?
Yeah, so I'm just do some rough backwards math. We were probably somewhere around like that 110K, 120K spent at that point, probably somewhere around there. So in the last couple of years,
very early,
so we were like, when we bought it, it was still probably about a little over halfway there to what we were doing in managed spend at this point. We really hit the ground running with finding clients with larger spend, training our agency partners to go after people that are willing to spend more. So like one of the things we did is we have this concept called smart niches, where they're the 64 niches that we want to work in. And actually we're shifting a lot of things where it's like, we'll pretty much only work in right now. Just from a white label model perspective, it works because they become very assembly line in how you can build and manage. And I don't want people to think assembly line is lesser than in things. It's like, there's a clear process to run this. There's an SOP you can run there. We're not learning on your dime. We're not doing any of that type of stuff. Right. So what we do is we tell our agencies now, like we educate them, like, hey, there's a minimum viable budget that you can have, and then there's a recommended budget. Go for people who have the ability to do recommended budget. Minimum viable is fine, but they're going to be your worst clients. They're going to leave in 3 months, and this space is small. People are going to hear about you. It's the wrong thing.
So what is a recommended budget?
Yeah, so it'll depend on the niche you're in. So say for instance, I'll pull it up. Let me pull up my smart niche sheet real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
I'm on spotty hotel Wi-Fi, so I won't try sharing my screen or doing anything like that because that'd be crazy pants, like being
Yeah, no problem.
being where I'm at. But I'll grab an example one if I can get it to load. But
Yeah,
and
sounds
I'll
good.
do an exact number. But basically, the minimum, like conceptually, they're exactly what they sound. Minimum budget is going to be like what is the least amount of money I can spend where I can get a level of meaningful results,
Right. Okay.
right?
And is
So
that a percentage
and
of
then
overall
below,
revenue or sorry, go ahead.
no, it's going to be it's going to be based on the channel essentially. So in
Okay.
general, like if you're doing marketing, like you should be spending like on your marketing efforts is at minimum 15% of what your gross revenue is. You need to be spending on marketing at the minimum.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're in that growth phase, you need to be looking into that. But okay, I got the sheet up. So let's say for I want to pick one that has a decent delta. Okay, so say if you're working with chiropractor clients, right?
Yeah.
We'll say like your absolute minimum budget for a general chiropractor, it's around $1,000 a month in ad spend,
Okay. That's
right?
not
That's
terrible.
what
That's
they
quite
should be spending
reasonable.
to get. No, it's not terrible. That's doable. But what we try to coach our people to go after is don't go for the minimum people who are only willing to
Right.
spend the minimum viable, right? If you really want to have meaningful results in a timeline that we can actually send the right data, like signals back to Google, the
Yeah.
recommended starting budget is going to be around 3,000. So 3x
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
So go for clients that have that because one, you're going to have a better chance for success with that. They're also
Right.
much more willing to like they're at a place if they're willing to spend like 3x what the minimum is, that means they kind of believe in this marketing thing, right?
Mm,
Like
yeah.
if they're not scoffing at budgets, they kind of believe in this thing. So
Right.
they're going to
Yeah.
be a better client, right? So that's where we've been noticing with the clients we're bringing on board in the last couple of years, like the difference and why we were able to kind of see what took 10 a little over 10 years to break that like 100 million
Yeah.
like in the history of the company.
Yeah.
We were able to get there a lot faster because of how we shifted the model in terms of like you need to
Yeah.
go after people who aren't just like I want to spend $250 on Google and have someone handle it for me. It's like just go
Right.
go like to a nice dinner instead.
Yeah.
Go do that. Like that will be
Yeah.
better for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. So just to kind of reiterate, one of the keys in how you guys scaled from when you took over the business was by scrutinizing the kind of level of clients that you accept to a
Mhm.
level where you said, hey, if these guys have on average 3 times the minimum budget, these are going to be clients that stick around and help us level up our business and stick around
Yep.
and get meaningful results so you can ultimately continue to grow. That's really interesting. Is there anything else that's obvious like that that you've attributed to the ability to scale Invisible PPC that was really, instrumental in that growth?
Yeah, the other is like just we really started pushing our account managers, not to be salespeople or anything like that, but we're just saying like in our review meetings, we do this monthly. But and you should be doing this as an agency. You should be meeting with your clients like at minimum every 2 weeks. But you want to make sure in your monthly meetings you're doing like you're checking to see where budget's at in terms of like to where their goals are. So
Right.
speaking to like what's the company goals at, and then saying like, hey, if you're ahead, like say if you're ahead, instead of being like, hey, like we can stick to the budget, right? It's like, hey, do we want to exploit this right now? Right. So and we train our people to say, hey, like around every month or every quarter, like really reevaluating kind of like, hey, we've been spending around 5K on this account each month. There's more money to be had here. Like if your client's happy with results, if they're seeing the ROI coming in, it's time to then talk to them about increasing budget, not so that we
Yeah.
can get paid more. I mean, it's a nice side effect for us,
Right.
not so the agency can get paid more,
Yeah.
but so the client can actually see the client will get more results, and then everybody wins. And
Yeah.
so yeah,
For
that's
sure.
that's the other thing that really came in, like making sure we're as much of a business partner to our clients and kind of teaching them good behaviors to then pass on to theirs so that we all just make more money, and so that spend comes in. Yeah.
Love it. That's cool. Yeah. So for anybody else that's in this PPC management space, the two things that got you guys up to this level currently, from what we've just gone over, for anybody that just joined in as well, is going to be scrutinizing the level of client you accept early on. So going for people that have large ad spend ability, if they are already bought in, they stick around longer, they see results at a larger scale. And then, of course, scaling within those individual accounts through your account managers
Mhm.
to maximize each of those accounts accounts, not just for your business, but obviously for the outcomes that they can experience through ads that are converting for them. I mean, it just makes sense. You're running a business that works and you're creating ROI. So why would you not want to scale that up and continue to do more of that when you've got the proof, you've got the results?
Exactly. It's wild too, because I was telling some of our partners today. They were asking a question about, like, how they were asking the inverse question, but then I answered the opposite one because I think it's a more telling thing. Because on every sales call you get on with a client, you're going to hear this at one point. Like, eventually you'll hear it every time, and you might have heard it already and ignored it, but it pops up. They're going to say, okay, so I want to start with like a low budget, test the waters. And then if we're seeing ROI, money's not an issue. It's always an issue. They're not going to increase it on their own, right? They're just not. So you need to make sure, as the agency of record, if you signed a client who said that, remind them. Be like, hey, looks like you're getting an ROI of this. We can see the clients coming on this. We should triple or quadruple budget today. And you don't want to do it right at once, but scale it over that timeline. But yeah, I want to the caveat for anybody who's listening that's like pro, like, no, I'm not saying just go double your budget and dump it in like tomorrow. That'd be crazy. You'll obliterate your campaigns. But yeah, you should get them to sign on for that, because the thing is, people will say that, they'll posture it like that's the case, but then they're not going to do it. So you need to make that ask, and it's not even an ask. You need to prescribe it. You will get this if you do this.
I like that word.
That's simple.
Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. So what's your process? We've talked about kind of how you acquired Invisible PPC. We've talked about how you're scaling it, what you're kind of doing on a account level to continue to grow. If there's nothing else that's blaring that you want to share on how you're continuing to scale, I'd love to know what you're doing to scale individual accounts. What's your process to bring in a new account, get that going from 0 to X number and continuing to grow it from there? What does that look like?
Yep. So, and do you want me to talk about like when we've gotten somebody? Do you want to talk about our sales process, or you want to talk about once we've sold them, how we get them up?
Once you've sold them, I kind of want to hear like the nuts and bolts of what you're doing to actually get results out of these campaigns. If you're comfortable sharing a little bit of the secret sauce with us.
That's awesome, Matt. Yeah. So really how it breaks down. So once somebody has a client like sold, they're like, hey, we want to work with you. They have a client they want to send our way. The first thing we do is to say, hey, like, we have a lengthy form like that we fill out. It's a big onboarding form that is exhaustive. It's everything you'd ever need to know. And then most of our people, what they do is like we have that once they've worked with us, they use that during their process where they get all those questions answered. They get an intake form and then just fill it in. But it's going to be like, questions about the business itself. Like, what are the offerings that they're going after? Where are they located? Do they have multiple locations? Like have like, what's their what's their Google account? Like get us access to their MCC, get us access to this. So it tells like in every step what to do with us. And then it fills that bad boy out. Once that bad boy is filled out, at that point in time, you already have an account manager. Then the next page is book an onboarding call with one of our people. So then they book their time. Between the form coming in and the meeting itself, we do some pre-work to kind of make sure that we have an understanding of things once we have access to stuff, and then start taking a look. Okay, cool. Like, and we jump on, and then that's more of an alignment call in general. So we're like, hey, like, let's make sure we're all saying the same things here. We're looking good. These are the offers we're going after. And then we start doing all the campaign architecture. We write all the ads, build the landing pages needed. Do everything that you would have to do to build a campaign. Like, so set up all the call tracking numbers, like use click fraud protection, build you reporting dashboards, do all that stuff so you have everything you need, right? You don't have to think about it. Once they passed on, we got it. The only thing you have to think about is getting your client to approve the creative, because we won't put anything live until that stuff's approved and you've given us the green light to start spending money on ads. Once accounts are live. We have a weekly cadence where we're sending an update to our agencies each week, being like, hey, this is what's going on in there. We actually have members of the team in the account daily. So Google has become less like the game used to be like, how do I find like long tail high value keywords and that would get me that other people missed. People aren't missing them anymore. They aren't. And Google's making it harder to match. Like, they've completely nerfed exact match. Like, exact is like pretty much phrase at this point, right? So a lot of Google now, it's a lot of like the bonsai tree. It's a lot of pruning, and it's a lot of like understanding the words and how they like the keywords and the not the keywords, even the search terms that are coming in, and how they're like and whether they're relevant or not, and really playing a lot of defense. There's a lot of defense in Google now, a lot of it, and
Interesting. Yeah.
it requires manpower, women power, whatever you want to say.
Sure.
It requires
Yeah.
human power at this. It
Yeah.
requires that. Um, Certainly there's some AI, like we have scripts and we have things in play that we can do. We also have like for our niches, we have a bunch, like a whole database of negative keywords by niche that we can implement right away.
Great.
That gives us an
Yeah.
edge to start.
That makes sense. Yeah.
But there's going to be stuff that comes through that you have to play defense on. And if you don't play defense for 3 months, you're going to be spending money in places that it makes absolutely no sense, even if you have what looks like an airtight keyword strategy and match type strategy. It's just the case. So we have somebody in there daily, and then we take a lot of like we take a proactive approach. So that's our reactive stuff. Then proactive, each week, we're going to be looking at kind of like the main 4 things that matter to us. It's going to be visibility, engagement, conversion, and quality, right?
Gotcha.
And so we look at all 4 of those and go, which one of these needs a little bit of love? Or which one of these do we think we can take to the moon, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not just let's fix it. It's, hey, what does this need help? No. Okay, where can it be better? Great.
Right.
And then we start a plan of attack there. Another cool thing that we do internally, this happens more, like being completely candid, like it's more for when we have a problem account, or like there's a problem that an account manager needs assistance with. We have weekly huddles with our entire account team and all of our senior management, where they pull one up and we all walk through it, all of us.
That's cool. Yeah.
To get the solutions needed for that. So because you can't work in silos. Like we have amazing talent on our team, but sometimes you need somebody to just go and be like, hey, what's that? because you're missing it, right? And so that's one of the other things we do internally. And then from there, we have monthly required meetings with our partners to make sure that we're in alignment with them. So
that makes sense.
Yeah, that's generally how we work, and like that process has gotten us to maintain clients and then to scale them up.
Fantastic. Is there anything that you guys do that's kind of considerably different or unique that you're like, most people in this space are missing this, and if you add this ingredient, you're going to see results that other people may not? Is there anything that you've kind of found in your career doing this so far that's like, this is a differentiator and a lot of people miss this particular point?
I'd love to say yes to that. A lot of it comes down to, one, we have like the fundamentals are in place. 2, like we include like landing pages at no additional cost, because landing pages are the most important thing to any campaign.
Interesting.
If you're
so that's all included.
If you're selling ads and you're not including landing pages, you're not selling ads. You're selling attention, and then you're not selling action, right? You need to have control of the landing page at that point. So that's a big one for us, and it's wild. We also have our own internal tools that we've released one as like a SaaS product that people can buy, like clients can use. But the point of that one was, and we're going to be releasing more of these because we build a lot of internal stuff. But I think the stuff that's been helping us out is the long view. So when I was talking about like legacy brands and those types of things, like are they just kind of old at this point? And is there value to legacy in brands? And yes, there is, if you have data. And we have heaps of it. And that gives us a massive competitive edge. And I truly believe that. And we see it with our clientele as well. So that's, I think, a big one there. And the other thing we do different as like a white label, it's not as much on the management side, but we also provide things for like our partners. Like we give them like white label case studies. So like, hey, if you're trying to break into a new niche, just use these, like, because your team did it, right? We provide them like prospect pitch decks. Like we provide them other services. Like, so we try to actually partner up with them outside of just management, because if they're able to close stuff with our data, because that's what makes us unique and different, then they're going to just send us that business. And so it's a really great symbiotic relationship.
Love it. Love it. Before we wrap this up, I kind of want to hear, obviously you acquired this business. Have you done any other acquisitions since? What's your appetite for acquisitions now that you've done this one?
Yeah, so we haven't acquired anything. We are actively looking
Yeah.
for businesses to acquire. Like the fastest way to grow if you have capital is acquiring a business. I
Yeah.
was chatting with a friend of mine. He has a massive, wildly successful agency, and we were talking about just what are our goals for the year and these types of things. And he was sharing. He's like, man, like I've been like my goal is now we're gonna grow by gobbling up. Like we're gonna pick up people, and he was sharing his philosophy on that, which I thought was interesting. It's like, and I know some people listening, you're like that might seem like a far cry at this point, but also be on the offense a little bit, because likely as you start getting something good going, people are going to be coming knocking to you as well. So
Yeah.
if you're just starting an agency, like a lot of people are saying now, like, like start your business with your exit in mind. Like you can take that however you will, but make sure
Sure.
like you keep books clean, keep everything kind of like in place in a way where like people are going to be coming for you, because agency acquisitions, I mean, the last couple of years, and it doesn't seem to be winding down, are still very, very active.
Yeah.
And so whether you think you're whether you're like not in this place to buy, but you might be in a place to sell at some point in time, just know that that's something that exists out there, because people are actively doing that type of people are actively looking for those types of things.
Super cool. I appreciate the knowledge dump and sharing your experience with the acquisition and kind of the forward outlook for you guys. Anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, I like connect with me like on LinkedIn. I'm super active there. Obviously, please check us out like on invisibleppc.com. I did reference a tool that we created. It's to help you see who's advertising. It's called PPC Reveal. So
Excellent.
ppcreveal.ai. Give that a check, a look. We actually did an AppSumo launch a while back that went phenomenally. We put in like
Excellent.
2,500 users like that. And let me tell you about a stress. That's a whole other, whole other story at that point. But no, check those things out, and then yeah, please connect on LinkedIn. And I'll say my email is justin@invisibleppc.com. Shoot me an email. Like, say what's up.
Cool. Awesome. Thanks, man.